What's up, everybody? It's a few days later. I'm back in the studio. I went out last night and bought some wood. A few things. Got rid of all the nails in the wall. There was probably a good 500 of them or so. Me and Emily went through the other night and we were putting together our whole bathroom, mapping out like how we wanted it, and we found that there's mutual agreement upon the fact that it's not gonna be big enough. So we decided we were gonna have the wall come out from here. We're moving it over 20 inches, which is actually this line right here I put on there. I gotta finish it. That window has to come out. This light has to come out. These tray ceilings have to come out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with that. I'm just trying to do a little bit every day because I really want to have this back up and running by Christmas.
You serious?
Man, I had to put that little laughing clip in there. If I had $1 for every time I said to the camera, oh, it'll just take a few days to get to this point, or oh, by Christmas I'll be done, I probably could have afforded to pay somebody to do all the work and it probably would have been done by Christmas. But you know, here's the thing. It is so easy to fall victim to the mindset that once I'm at this point in life, I'll be so good. Goals are great to have, but life's happening now. In the hustle and bustle of life, you can often find yourself looking forward to the point where you ignore and neglect everything happening now, including your blessings. My wife and I got to take on this incredible project together. Some of my earliest memories I have are following my dad around in the basement of the first house I ever lived in, and I was helping him build his studio. At the time, I thought I was just hanging out with my dad, but he would tell me these stories that would make me laugh, but always had a lesson inside of them somewhere, and teach me that the difference between winners and losers is that winners lose more, but they don't quit. And sometimes life's gonna push, and you gotta learn how to push back, and if you can't, you gotta figure out a way to get through. My lessons on how to do all this stuff really started then. While I don't talk about them all too often, those are the memories I really hold near and dear to my heart, and they played a huge hand in making me who I am today. And honestly, when I think about the stuff my dad did before I was born, I'd look around and just think it was some sort of a permanent structure that's always been there. And that's probably what the studio is going to be for my kids. And honestly, I'm so excited to be able to start teaching them the same things my dad taught me when I was growing up. It's surreal to think about, but that truly is what the circle of life is. And while you're in the moment, it can seem long, it can seem stressful, never-ending, frustrating, but time is fleeting, ceaselessly moving forward. Feels like I blinked just a couple of times and those memories with my dad are 25 years ago. Wow, that is so weird to say out loud. Well, with the window all boarded up, there were just a few odds and ends I needed to get done before I was able to start framing in the new bathroom. The part of the house we're working on is only accessible by the deepest part of the crawl space. And in order to gain access to that section of the crawl space, you have to crawl over the main drain pipes, and it gets pretty narrow. Too narrow for me to fit through anyway. This meant that anything pertaining to drains, water lines, vents, or electrical all had to be done while my friend Jake was over. So while it may look like I'm just standing around, I'm actually waiting for him to let me know what he needs handed down to him. Thankfully, this is where the old tub was, and there's a hole big enough that we could use to hand some tools through. It always pays to have good friends to help you out whenever you need it. So Jake was down in the crawl space and he was cutting out this vent pipe for the old shower, and I cut it out of the attic and capped it off. And now we're left with a wide open bathroom. How nice does that look? Well, not as nice as it will once it's drywalled. You're about to see in this next clip where I pulled the old tub out had no subfloor underneath it. So we had to get some plywood to fill in the hole from where the tub was sitting. A little tap tap with the hammer and in she goes. So in the closet, we opted not to rip out the rest of the tray ceilings, and I just framed straight across the bottom to hang the drywall. It will result in slightly shorter ceilings, but it's going to create so much less of a headache in the end.
So I've already done the first few here. I'm basically marrying little pieces of 2x4 to the original stud to jut it out, because this plaster on this wall is actually only about a 1/4 inch thicker. But I have this jutted out just about a 1/4 of an inch. So when I lay my drywall up against there, it'll sit flush with this. That way there's not a whole lot of individual shimming I have to do. So I'm just going along. I've got this little, basically my drywall stencil cut out. I put the 2x4 behind there and just push this in and out until it's even. Screw the 2x4 in and move to the next one.
Man, looking back at this, I get low-key PTSD. You could see straight into the attic, which I didn't like because I know we've had bats up there. I don't want them in the house, but that aside, I thought it was such a good idea to leave all the plaster up on the walls and on the ceilings and just fill in the cracks. I mean, if you look at the footage, there's not that much. I thought it would just kind of be, hey, I have to shim this out a little bit and then mount the drywall. But it ended up being a lot more than I bargained for. And honestly, if I could go back, I would have ripped everything down and just drywalled it all. Why, you ask? Well, put simply, I thought it would save me time on the front end and maybe take a little bit more on the back end. But in reality, it took a lot more time on the front end and way more time on the back end. You see, I didn't take into account that there'd be variances, not just in like alternative walls and ceilings, but also in the same wall. So I would measure the depth of the plaster, and then I started mass producing these shim packs to basically just shim out my drywall. When I went to put it on, it'd be sticking out a ½ inch or sticking in 3/8 of an inch, and there would seem to be like no method to the madness. Well, eventually I learned and made a mental note that if I ever do this again, I'd do it take by take for measuring. But that's honestly a useless mental note to remember because if I ever do come across this scenario again, I'm ripping it all down. Well, you see me up there now with my oscillating saw, and that thing is MVP when it comes to cutting through plaster, drywall, or honestly anything else. We didn't leave quite enough of the rafter exposed to marry the 2x4 that's going to act as a shim to mount the drywall to, so I had to cut it back a little cleaner. It's just another thing I really didn't anticipate in this whole thing. I thought this would be a really quick kind of just slap it up and move on type of deal, and it was anything but that. A lot of the insulation fell out when we pulled the ceiling down, so I had to go ahead and replace it. I've noticed ever since we moved in here that our insulation barrier in the attic has been amazing. A great way you can tell is if you go out on a cold winter morning when there's some frost or snow on the roof, you shouldn't see any kind of melting holes or anything. If it's even across the whole roof, you've probably got a pretty good insulation barrier, and that was our case, so I wanted to make sure I put it back the right way. It's actually kind of a fun game for me. If I'm out driving on a winter day or morning after a fresh frost or snowfall, you'll be able to see all sorts of roofs up and down the road that have poor insulation areas. But more than that, it's a great way to pay attention to your own house. The more you know and the more you're educated, the better off you're going to be. While it might look like I'm texting over there, I promise you I'm not. I'm actually wrapping up shims into painter's tape so I can put them up on the rafters. If the shims ended up being thin enough, I would just staple them up. Otherwise, I'd put a drywall screw in them off to the side. It's just one less thing I have to try to hold on to while I'm holding a piece of drywall up over my head. I opted to run 10 gauge wire on a 20 amp circuit as opposed to the 12 or 14 gauge wire on a 15 amp circuit that normally runs through a house. I'm building this to be my music studio, and music equipment can be sometimes power hungry. I didn't want to have to worry about overloading the circuit, overheating it, or anything else. I just decided to run heavier gauge wire and be done with it. That said, 10 gauge wire is so stubborn and such a pain to get it to bend and move the way you want it to. It'll all be worth it in the end, though. Finally getting the first piece of drywall back up. Man, I can remember my sense of relief right off the bat. You get so used to seeing this place tore open and all the ugly insides. This is a huge step.
Kind of the end of day 2. Believe it or not, as dark as it is outside, it's only like 5:20 or something like that. But my nephew's birthday is going on, so we're gonna pack up and head out. One thing that really slowed me down today was getting all my electrical working. This is now all on. I've got it into the breaker box. One of the big things, which really makes a big difference to me, is there were cords hanging down from where the walls used to be. I cut them all out, and now we're on brand new fresh power. So it's pretty nice, pretty exciting, and I'll tell you, one of the coolest things, I turn my chops on, and the lights don't even flicker. Before, every time I turn it on, all the lights will come right back up. Now it's, fresh, nice 20 amp feed. That's all there is for me today. Good morning. It is another day. It's a Monday. This is what we got the progress done last night. That gap is getting nicely filled in. The plan for today is to just keep drywalling. Anyway, we're gonna get to it. We'll see what happens.
I wanted to leave this clip in because I had to recut this piece seemingly 4 or 5 times. I find myself getting lost in a lot of these Facebook or YouTube short video looks like perfection because they edit out all the actual meat and potatoes of what actually took so much time. I wanted to show realistically how long it takes to cut a piece. Not every piece, but every once in a while you look, you cut wrong, you've got to go back, recut. Even if you measure twice and you have to cut once, sometimes you measure twice, cut once, it's wrong. You waste a piece, you got to go back and measure again. That's just the way the world works, man. And sometimes I just feel like a lot of people aren't super honest about that. They want to make it look like, oh, this was so easy. We just, weekend project, man. We did this whole room, and that's crap. I don't care what anybody says, unless you pay somebody and they bring out like a whole crew. I just wanted to show what it really looks like sometimes, and sometimes it can be very frustrating. And yeah, this is time-lapsed, and yeah, it's actually still making it look like it went faster than it really did. But just count how many times I went up and down that ladder. But sometimes life's like that, and sometimes you gotta work twice as hard to get the same cut. There was nothing seemingly hard about that cut. I don't remember what happened. Maybe I read my tape wrong, who knows? Victory honestly belongs to those who persevere. And really, I wanted to show a real-world scenario and let you know that if this is you and you find yourself making multiple cuts over and over, or if you're just letting this stop you from starting on a project or a goal, that everybody struggles, regardless of what they let you see. Practice makes permanent. There's no such thing as perfection. And yeah, over time, you will get better at whatever you're doing, but how are you ever going to get better if you don't start? Well, anyways, guys, I don't have a farewell clip for you in this video. I didn't realize how long the footage was getting when I was recording, and I just know the time is getting long on the video now. And I've already kind of cut it down just about as far as I can, so I'm going to end it here in just a minute. But before we do, I'm going to leave you with a before shot of the studio and where we are with the current progress. We are back to having weekly videos, so be sure to hit that subscribe button for me. If you made it to this point in the video, I'd like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not a lot of people have the attention span to sit through a 16-minute video these days. If you find yourself wanting more, feel free to check the link in the description and I'll have another project linked down there until we upload again. Thanks again for watching, much love, and God bless. Did I already say that? Well, extra blessings from God can't be a bad thing, right? Catch you guys on the next one.